So this is going to be about how to get higher quality use out of your Harbor Freight Sport Rack crossbars. And the way I see it, looking at more expensive, although still Chinese made products like Thule, Yakima, the main difference is that when you put these on, they fit well, and they're rated up to 150 pounds, and so they're middle of the road in terms of their strength. I put a pretty heavy kayak up there, a Malibu Ocean 2, which is it's a 60-pound two-person kayak, and it basically requires all 150 pounds because when you strap it down and make sure it won't move in the wind, it's actually probably in excess of that in terms of the forces. So the two main problems with this rack, or these crossbars I should say, are gas mileage and terrible noise. And there's two root causes of both of those issues. The main issue, or the main problem, or the main cause, root cause I should say, is these gaps. In haste to manufacture these crossbars cheaply, they basically didn't even include a piece, whether it be rubber, plastic, or wrapped around continued aluminum, that was going to close this gap. And so you got a lot of air getting in here, and also on the other side there's one right here, just creating a ton of noise and drag, and pissing off your wife and also reducing your gas mileage by quite a bit because of that wind resistance. When the wind gets trapped up in there and makes that noise, it's bad for fuel economy. So the other issue is that, as you can see, if you get racks that are built for your Mercedes or for your Infiniti or whatever, custom racks that come from the factory OEM, they would be cut off here essentially, and so they would not protrude. But the fact that it's actually a good thing, these Harbor Freight racks are universal racks, and so they fit any car. But in my case, I have a Nissan Rogue SL, and it's a small SUV, and they protrude quite a bit. And this is less of a problem, but it's still an issue. As they protrude into the wind from being at the optimal width, they create additional wind resistance and reduce the fuel economy. And so that particular part, in terms of cutting these off, which I'm about to do as the first step, the second step, I'm going to seal these gaps. So it's a two-step process. But that first part about cutting these off, if you wanted to use these on a smaller SUV or a wagon or something like that, because you had a wider load, even though it was a smaller car, and you want to leave them on there, you could do that. The biggest problem is the gaps, and you could find many different creative solutions. One idea I had was to put weather stripping in there and then seal the weather stripping, appropriate size weather stripping, and just seal it in there so it was flush and seal that gap, which would be very similar to some of the rubber pieces I've seen on the Thule racks and stuff like that. I'm going to do something slightly different that I hope turns out well. It's just because I'm working with the materials that I have on my budget, and we'll see how it turns out. But for the first step, we're going to measure how much I can cut off of these racks and still nicely fit this end cap on, which ends right where my thumb is. So because there's a stopping point at the clamp on the inside, there's like a post, I can't quite cut the racks to where this gap is going to, I can't quite cut the racks to where this cap is going to rest nice and flush as if it were factory, because it won't leave enough room for the cap to snugly fit back into the rack. And I could do that, but then I would have to then custom cut the post that slides in to the hollow space in the plastic end cap, and I don't really want to cut the inner part of the end cap because it's going to take me longer time to make a precise cut and get it in there. If I really wanted to do that, I would cut these flush with this right here and then cut this so that it fit nice and snug. You could do that too, I just don't want to take the extra time. the end result should be almost as good. So we'll check it out. All right, so I ended up taking the end cap off, and as you can see, that's what the crossbar looks like at the end. And it's just basically rolled up sheet metal in there. So I took that off, and I am measuring it to where this butt of the inside of the end cap needs to come up against the clamp post, the metal piece that's inside here, so that I can get it as snugly inward as possible. And I'm just, instead of using I was going to use a tape measure, but I found it faster to just sit that right up there where it needs to be. And it's the same on each side, so it'll be nice and even. And then right where the butt cap is where I'm going to cut with the reciprocating saw. And so just going to mark it right there. And on the other side. And then I'm going to check it to make sure, I'm eyeballing it to make sure. It's really hard to see what's in there, but there's a little piece, and if you have these, you'll see that metal piece. You cannot have this end cap unless you cut it, like I said, come in and be in the way of that piece, or else the end cap won't fit snugly back on the end of the crossbar. And so I want it to look nice, so I'm just measuring it this way, and so far so good. So I just want to make note that this is the rubber stripping that comes in the top, and since I am cutting these pieces, I'm going to have to also cut the rubber stripping. Since I'm cutting the rubber stripping, I might actually just I hadn't thought of this before, but take the excess stripping, because the slot in the top appears to be exactly the same size as the slot in the bottom, and then cut that to fit whatever gaps are left. And I might have a very factory looking solution if I'm able to utilize all that rubber stripping. It's a little bit better than the idea I had before. We'll see if it works. If not, I'm going to go to my previous idea, which actually involves matching colored flex tape and caulk, which would be done discreetly and not like some, fly-by-night duct tape job. So if that was measured nicely and it was put in there discreetly, I think that would work too. We'll see which one ends up working out based on, or maybe a combination based on the leftover length of the rubber stripping out here that I have. This is the way it normally looks right here, but again, I'm going to have to cut that because I'm cutting the bar itself, so we'll see how much excess I get out of that right there. Alright, due to the type of camera I'm using, I'm not really going to be able to show much of the action of sawing off these. I'm going to leave them right on the car, by the way. Hopefully I don't. Obviously you wouldn't want to nick your paint and catch a blade on any of the body of your car, but if you're careful, I should be able to saw them right off the car. And anyway, so this isn't going to be instructions due to the lack of footage on using a reciprocating saw, but there's always another YouTube video for that. Alright, so I was pleasantly surprised because the Sawzall, or the reciprocating saw, Sawzall is a nickname because it's Sawzall. Anyway, it's not a precise tool. It's more of a powerful tool versus giving precise cuts. I thought there was going to be all sorts of, burrs and nastiness whenever I cut this off, but these are the cuts that came out actually really clean. I thought I was going to have to Dremel them clean afterwards. I might deburr them just very lightly, or not. I mean, right now, before I do anything else, I'm probably just going to stick the caps on and get back to it later, because frankly, the cuts were pretty clean. And the other cool thing is, look at how much of this stripping I got. So that is plenty to seal what's left over of those gaps. I mean, I'm just going to seal them up. It's going to look like just from the factory. So these right here, just some gardening shears, and they'll make handiwork of that. can't make this up. I've been driving with the air conditioner on max. I'm about to turn it off just so it's not so noisy. But I've been driving for a while, and with the racks unaltered, the gas mileage was like 24.9. And like I said, I've been going for a minute like this. Granted, stretch of road I've been going down has been relatively flat, but I have gone far enough to go through 2 different counties, and I reset the fuel economy when I left my house. So this is pretty much where you're gonna get, or the difference you're gonna get after you fix these racks. Alright, so what happened was, there's actually, it wasn't cut perfectly. I'll tell you what, like the leftover, just because of the width of my particular vehicle in relation to the factory width of these racks, the leftover part that I cut off the side of this rubber stripping that came from the top that was in excess was the exact amount in order to seal all these gaps on the underside, both inside and outside the sport rack clamps. But as you can see right there, there is a gap. And it's funny because I said it's the exact right amount. Well, this was the piece that I had left over, and this is the same size as that gap. So I'm about to put it in there. The other thing I did when I was just on the freeway, which is why I was getting that gas mileage that you saw, the Nissan Rogue Eco mode is a beast on gas. So it was like that before, actually, on flat or downhill or anything like that. But when I put on the racks, and then when I put on the kayak especially, it really reduces it. But the racks themselves were horrible when I first got these and put them on. Anyway, what I'm going to do is 2 things. First of all, I'm going to, because this stripping was actually loose in here, and I was afraid it was going to come off. So I'm going to take it out. What I'm going to do, I'm going to just coat it with rubber cement, which is not permanent, but I really want to be able to take those on and off as necessary, as I take the racks off, as I adjust anything, so I could take them off and I could wipe off any residue. Plus, it's strong enough to where this is what you repair bike tires, even tubeless car tires with. So this stuff is really strong until you want to take it off, and then it comes off. So that's what I'm going to use. You could use caulk, which I'm going to use on the top, because on the top I actually miscut some of this stuff. So there's 2 pieces on the end of I think it's the right or left side of the top section of the front rubber stripping on the crossbar. So I'm going to join those with caulk and try not to get it on the rack, but this will work for the rest of the ceiling, so they won't come off on the freeway or in the rain or anything like that. As you can see with this particular project, the whole thing has taken, maybe 2 hours, if that. It's already saving me a ton of gas. It's quieted down the racks. They're still kind of noisy, but these are the first racks I've ever had, so maybe that's just with all racks. But it's cut the noise about by 1/3 or 1/2, which is way better than it was. And then they just look a lot better in relation to the car. And I have used 0 store-bought materials, just stuff lying around the house, and minimal amount of time. So anybody can do this. In fact, I used to do stuff like this, and I don't even have the saw. I used to borrow my neighbor's Sawzall and do stuff like this. But I bought this Sawzall, it was 90 bucks when I first got it back a little while ago for these types of projects off of Amazon. And it was refurbished, and it freaking works like a champ. Anyway, I'm going to put this back in. And we're going to put it right in just the same way. You know what, I want to get some in the groove, so I won't be able to put that on camera because I have a handheld camera. But I'm going to put it in the grooves, and I'm going to put it back in. Then I'm going to do all of them. Alright, so that was easy enough. I'm about to I got a little bit on my fingers, but I haven't even made a mess anywhere else, anywhere in my car. Of course, I've been careful. I recommend you put down whatever, newspaper, paper bags, protective stuff you got to put down. You can see there's a little rubber cement if you can see it. Yeah, there it is. There's a little rubber cement right here on the excess. I'm just gonna get that with my finger, still nice and wet. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of this Amazon bag just because I don't have a paper towel right where I'm at. Literally using whatever I have on hand. And I'm just gonna wipe that excess. And then this particular one was cut. It was actually accidentally cut at an angle, and that rack gap was also cut at an angle, so I just fit them together. And it looks like I did it custom, but I didn't. So, all right, so that's got some little beads of dried rubber on it. It looks kind of whack right now, but what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna wipe it off with a better towel in a minute. That's gonna look perfect, just with all of them like that, and they won't come off for any reason. And it's about to rain in just a few minutes. This rubber cement dries quick, so it's perfect. And then while I'm at it, I'm just gonna put this little one in too. All right, I got that in the grooves there. And this just goes to show you that with these, the way they're built, you do not have to cut these perfectly. You can join them together in pieces as long as you have them in place well. They'll still do the job real nice. And from a distance, like to the, to somebody's eye who doesn't even know you did something, the whole thing looks like it came that way from the factory. All right, so that's it, all sealed up. Got that good gas mileage, got that quiet noise, got that sporty look on the road, and we are in business.